This video is sponsored by Surfshark. The company that put the wow back in foldables is back. And this time around, it's coming for clamshell fans, with a phone that takes a familiar Samsung design and flips some things around. The result is a beautiful smartphone that stands out, but with a halo feature that still misses the point. Hardware was the big success story of last year's Vivo X Fold, and the same is true of the new Vivo X Flip. Hiding the crease is still a huge part of making a folding phone, and popping this one out of the box, I am treated to the smoothest unfolded screen I've ever seen. Seriously, it looks almost like a standard slab. Of course, 12 days and many hundreds of fold cycles later, the shot ultra-thin glass has worn in, and we see the familiar footprint characteristic of wide water-drop screens. But it's still impressively subtle, and you don't see it, or even more importantly, feel it at all when you're using it. And the casing encompassing that screen is something special too. While Vivo does offer low-profile gold and black options, as seen in this unfortunately titled but still excellent hands-on from Vincent Zhong, the unit I bought is this violet delight. Its surface treatment evokes a high-end handbag with a fashionable crosshatch relief dotted by stitching that, yes, is just as fake as the faux leather it's made of, but I find the soft, yielding pleather preferable to yet another frosted finish. And even if you're not burned out on Gorilla Glass like I am, this is virtually guaranteed to take a hard fall better. The overall layout is familiar to anyone who's seen a Galaxy Flip of the past two generations. Spine, dual SIM tray, volume rocker, and fingerprint sensor all where you expect them. But Vivo stacks on the chonk slightly to make space for a much larger battery. And it essentially reverses Samsung's cover panel arrangement, leaving the bottom half for the camera and devoting the top portion entirely to a 3-inch outer display. That's much larger than the Galaxy's and easily this phone's biggest selling point.
Or it would be if you could do anything meaningful with it. Yeah, just like Oppo, Vivo, in my opinion, completely misses the point of including a larger secondary display because it limits the user to a small collection of widgets and mini apps.
Sure, there are more of them. You can make calls out here or use a handful of custom apps. And of course, there's more room for system toggles and notification details. There are benefits. But still, this is like someone selling you a plot of land big enough to build a mansion on, only to then restrict you to a tiny home instead. As I've said so many times, even I'm getting tired of hearing it, Motorola sells you that same plot of land and lets you run literally any app you want. And every leak we've seen indicates that they'll lean even harder into that approach with the new Razr. Oh, I did try to run Cover Screen OS to kind of hack this feature onto the phone, but unfortunately it crashed every time I tried to open it. So, regardless of the fun clocks or the cute animal sidekicks or the handful of added widgets, this cover screen just feels like yet another imitation from a brand that decided the only thing it needed to do on software was offer the bare minimum to compete with Samsung. And that's disappointing. At this point, I should mention that the Vivo X Flip is one of many foldables exclusive to the China market, which offered a fun opportunity to use Google Translate for the initial setup, and also to use Android 13 with a very different kind of interface. It's branded Origin OS 3, and some of it is a direct lift of Samsung's flip phone UI. Like for mini laptop prop-up work and play, Flex Mode is here, right down to the name. But more interesting to me are the minor points of polish Vivo added on its own. Like waking the phone gives you an abstract interpretation of the time of day right below the clock. And swiping to unlock kind of flings the pin pad into place, which I think is cool. This is also a much more customizable version of Android than Google or even Samsung offers. You can set custom zones for specific gestures, go with Vivo's split notification and control center, or mash them together like Android does. There's a proper app drawer, and the multitasking view gives you fat stacks, like it should. There are tons of available widgets, which Vivo calls kits, and they're actually quite nicely designed, with a muted class that reminds me of the sleeker years of HTC Sense. And you have the option to tweak the look of your home screen without completely changing it, thanks to something called the Mood Cube. It might be the animated cover screen mascots that get people to buy the X Flip, but the attention to detail in the rest of the software is what'll keep them happy day to day. Speaking of the day-to-day, once I installed the Google Play Store from APK Mirror and spent a few minutes in settings to make sure the phone didn't force close my apps in the background, I found the X Flip perfectly usable as a daily driver on Google Fi. From JFK to SFO to SAC to RSW and back to LGA, where the X Flip really blew me away was in endurance. That big battery and the power-efficient Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1 processor worked together to make a phone that I easily went a day and a half, even 2 days with, more than once. Now, it is missing the full range of 4G and 5G bands, so it won't provide the speeds or reliability of a phone that's actually built for the US. But I only noticed that a couple times when waiting longer than usual for a download. All that being said, there do remain some other reasons you might want to put the brakes on your import impulses. No wireless charging, no water resistance, and no living up to a prominent piece of co-branding. A word on humps after the break. As you may have noticed, I'm back on the road this year, and that means my sponsor Surfshark is back in my taskbar. It's not that I don't trust airport or hotel Wi-Fi, but when I'm rushing around in travel mode, I worry that I might mistake a fraudulent public network for an authentic one. That's called an evil twin attack, by the way. Well, by using a VPN like Surfshark, I can make sure that all the data I'm sending while I'm on the go is encrypted, which keeps me safer. Also, it keeps me in control by making it harder for a service provider to throttle or limit my connection in order to squeeze me for more money. Speaking of money, save some. Get Surfshark at the link in the description and use code MrMobile for 83% off and 3 extra months free. Thanks to Surfshark for sponsoring this video. Cameras. They're even more important on a clamshell than a normal phone because they're designed to be the perfect self-standing tripod, and because you usually pay a lot for the privilege. Sadly, because of size and other constraints, I have yet to find a flip phone with truly great cameras, and the Vivo X Flip is no exception. Shooting side by side with my daily driver, Samsung's Galaxy Flip 4, each seemed as likely to disappoint as delight. Sometimes they nailed the exposure, but other times they really didn't. Despite Vivo's laser autofocus, it didn't do a better job of keeping the subject sharp in this admittedly challenging parrot-in-a-cage scenario. Vivo sometimes adds character that isn't necessarily there. Like in this capture of the clouds over Gasparilla Sound, which amps up the horizon colors so much that it's almost like the phone was wearing sunglasses. And they go flub for flub. In this shot from a Great Carolina dive bar, Vivo paints the colors with just the right amount of summertime saturation, while preserving the crisp detail of the condensation on that cold aluminum. Meanwhile, in the same exact setting, Samsung didn't seem to know what to do with the colors. Maybe it picked up on the partial face in the background and wanted to punch up the exposure. I don't know. Another time, in a Mother's Day self-portrait shot with the phones in flex mode, it was the Samsung that kept things truer to life, while Vivo added a very unnatural glow to my face and actually generally just got the whole shot wrong. This is a terrible picture. Here's a few video samples to chew on before I wrap up the camera section here.
Why? David, work on this side. I'll work on that side.
That's a good point.
Keep my feet up, roger that. This is probably a bad idea with a review unit. Oh my God! Yeah, that was a good time. I enjoyed that. Hard recommend.
Between the two phones, I think I'd probably have more fun with the Vivo camera. I mean, the color filters are an enjoyable break from the norm, and that Zeiss logo on the prominent camera module certainly suggests that it's a superior shooter. But of course, that's exactly what it's meant to do. In the real world, shooting alongside the 12-megapixel Samsung, not even Vivo's 50-megapixel sensor offered any tangible benefit in my testing. Keep in mind, Vivo's sensor size is also smaller. Its ultra-wide camera has a field of view 13 degrees narrower than Samsung's, and the selfie shooter is limited to 1080p. The only consistent advantage Vivo does enjoy is its larger viewfinder in flex mode, but its hinge is also flimsier, so it's less posable. In sum, the hump is a lie. Don't fall for a camera hump.
As I said when I reviewed the X Fold last year, deciding whether an overseas device is worth its asking price is tricky. What I usually end up doing is just asking myself whether I wish it were offered in my part of the world. And while I'm always petitioning for more competition in foldables, my answer this time is...
For all the wins Vivo logs with the X Flip, battery, crease, cover screen hardware, there's a commensurate sacrifice. Camera, hinge, and cover screen software. And it's that last one that really just pushes me over into shrug territory on this phone. This is the battlefield that matters most on a flip phone. And by failing to leverage it in a meaningful way, Vivo has failed to advance the clamshell conversation. I think the X Flip is gorgeous and fun, and if you agree with those things and don't need too great a camera, I think you'll love this phone. But I also think that when the competition makes its rumored 2023 models official, this Vivo will pretty quickly fade into the forgotten background. This video was made possible by a Vivo X Flip retail device purchased by Mr. Mobile's publisher with assistance from friend of the channel dbrand. Neither Vivo nor any other company was given early preview, copy approval, or any editorial input rights concerning this content. If you'd like to see more videos like this, and you're curious about the next generation of flip phones coming soon, be sure to subscribe to The Mr. Mobile on YouTube. Until next time, from Michael Fisher, thanks for watching. And stay mobile, my friends.